welcome everyone to Dave Cooper Live, where we bring you the people, the products, and the processes, helping us all to build it better. Today, it is my honor to welcome the champion. That's right, the champion of industrialized construction, Marty Corrado. He's an author, a change maker, a multi-trade prefabrication expert. If you want to learn not just the why, but how to make the shift to prefab, this conversation is for you. Marty Corrado is a union trade laborer and carpenter who has worked his way up through the ranks of large-scale construction projects to the position of general superintendent. Marty has specialized in mega hospital construction on a national level for over 30 years. He has built and managed projects in 10 different states, each with different building codes in varied climates. There is no fluff to this story. Marty is the real deal, and this is your chance to meet the person who not only wrote Prefabrication and Re-Evolution of Construction, he lived it. And we're going to talk about this book a little bit during the show as well. But with that said, we cannot bring you all of these innovative conversations without our sponsors. So before we bring Marty on, let's take a moment to thank our sponsors. Stream Modular, the only logistics company you need to transport your mods, pods, and panels. Our friends at Stream Modular are investing $50 million over the next 25 years to build the technology, solutions, and trailers needed to handle and transport the projects of today and meet the demands of tomorrow. Reach out to their team at streammodular.com to discuss your next project. CombiLift is the largest global manufacturer of multi-directional forklifts and straddle carriers, a leader in long load handling solutions, offering a free warehouse and site optimization design service. CombiLift helps companies of all sizes and from every industry maximize the capacity, safety, and efficiency of their warehouse and storage facilities. A big thank you to Paul Short and the team at CombiLift for helping us all to build it better. Visit them at combilift.com. Brave Control Solutions, where offsite manufacturing systems that do more than just improve productivity. They have a unique approach to industrialized construction, a lineup of flexible automation systems specifically designed for the construction industry, empowered by CAD to Fab, and turnkey solutions for 3D volumetric assembly, structural insulated panels, finished wall assemblies, MEP component processing, assembly, kitting, and storage. Learn more at thinkbrave.com. All right. Again, thank you to all of our sponsors. We cannot bring you all of these awesome conversations and with all these innovative people without their support. So please make sure you go and say hello to all of them. Check them out on their social media channels. Tell them Dave Cooper sent you. All right. So let's get into this, man. This is going to be an awesome conversation. Let's bring Marty onto the show. Marty, how are you?
What's happening, man? What's happening?
Dude, I am telling you, man, I have seen you several times at quite a few different events, right? The last being prefabrication, right? We were out in Phoenix, and you won awards. You're writing books. You built some of the biggest hospital projects in the country. You use prefabrication for pretty much everything that you try and do. And I am excited to have this conversation. So thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's great to get hooked up with you. You know, it's like minds think alike, great minds think alike, like minds think alike, all that stuff. So this is awesome.
Yeah, this is awesome. And I want everybody to know as well, Marty is also a fellow veteran. So thank you for your service. People should know that you put in your time. And I think that is awesome. So thank you.
You do. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, Marty. So we're going to get the show kicked off. We want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we may have your mother on the show, and that could get quite embarrassing. So, but you only have 2 minutes to do it. The floor is yours.
Okay, you got it, brother. Born in Ohio. Pretty much grew up in Dayton, Ohio. Oldest of 6 kids. Actually, my mom had 5. We adopted a gal when we were in high school. She's still with our family. Went to the Army for 3 years. I barely made it through high school. My dad tried to tell me that I finished at the bottom of my class. I sent away for my transcript, and I finished 181 out of 190. And I called him and I said, "Suck it, old man. I didn't finish at the bottom." So, I was never supposed to make it. Got married when I was 18. I'm still married to that woman today. We have 4 kids. I have worked all over the country. I was the person who was never supposed to do anything. I was never supposed to really take off. I was greatly underestimated my whole life. And I've pretty much been a fighter and a scrapper. I've got a great wife who has supported me. I think it's hard to be successful in the world without a good support cast. And I'm probably not the easiest person to live with. No, it's been a really good ride. I've had a lot of really good mentors. My dad has coached me through. My brother-in-law, Bill Whistler, Gary Breeding. I'll leave people out if I start naming people, but I've had 4 or 5 really good counselors that have helped me. And as I've gotten older, I've made more right decisions than I have wrong ones, which is a huge transformation from what it was earlier in my career and my life. So I'm real pleased with where I am and how things are going. And I try to pass that on to the next generation. I'm real adamant about bringing people up. There's a lot of people out there that need a mentor. And I was being mentored before it was called mentoring. So, everybody just needs a chance. So, and I'm doing that all the time. So that's pretty good. Mom would be proud of that one.
Yeah, no, I definitely your mom would be proud of that. And this story like you had in our construction industry, it's kind of common, right? Not real book smart, not like in school, whatever the case is. I was the same way. A lot of people know my story. I had a judge telling me you're either going on that bus or you're going on that bus, but you're getting on a bus,
Yep.
right? And I went to the Army, and that's how that worked. But the reality of it is, in this industry, there's having people that have the ability to see things and do things with their hands to make a big difference versus what it always pencils out on paper back in the old days, now digital. So I can relate to that.
Exactly. I feel the same way. And I think the big thing with the older generation, like me and you and myself, we really have to understand technology. It's not something to be afraid of. I've learned long ago that even if I mess something up, somebody can come in there and fix it. So
right, for sure. Well, let's hop into this, Marty. Amy Marks, the queen of prefab, right? calls you a change maker, right? And then you guys wrote a book, right? You wrote this book right here, right? Here it is. And we're going to talk about how people can get a copy of this. And you've been selling a lot of it. And people just love it. People come up to you and tell you how awesome it is. You're speaking at every event I go to. But, like who wakes up and says, I'm going to write a book today on prefabrication?
Well, I've had a number of people come up to me and say, "Oh, you wrote a book. I've always wanted to write a book." I'm like, "Okay, we'll go write one." I never thought about it. Every project I was going to, I was having to explain to everyone how great prefab was, how great industrialized construction was, what the benefits of it are. And it just got to be really tiresome. And I was literally pushing the rope uphill. And then during COVID, I got stuck on the bench, and someone said, "Well, my daughter has written and published 6 of her own books. Hers are romance novels loosely based on her life as a pilot."
Yeah.
And her education as a pilot. So she helped coach me through it. I really had a lot of that stuff already written down, and the book kind of served. I knew that I had information that people were trying to figure out on their own. And I had done it in so many different places and so many different times. I knew this would be a good guidebook for them. So it's really part autobiography, part instruction guide. And depending, and it's just fascinating that people come up, like you said, and say, "Oh, hey, I read your book. It's great. I've underlined stuff in it. I sent it to clients." I'm like, wow, so, yeah, it's been really good. It's great. And, most of the books in the industry, written by academics who, probably can't hang shelves in their own living room, right? There's very few books written about the industry from the industry boots on the ground perspective. And I have a great, I'm really good at connecting with people like that. So it was a lot of fun to write. So it's been a lot, it's learning about books and all that stuff. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah, well, you know what, it is neat, and one of these days I want to write a book too. Maybe give me some pointers, and everybody just says, "Well, just do it," and I got it. So you did a dedication in this book to Kate Whistler. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, man, my mom had 5 kids, and Kate got colon cancer. Um, we both, Kate and myself, worked for my dad's company, Shook Construction, on and off throughout after we graduated. And Kate ended up going to work for a program director in healthcare construction, got colon cancer, and it's just brutal to watch. She's a big part of she's a big hole in our family right now, always will be. And, you know, when I wrote that, my dad, big tough New Yorker and all that, he started crying when he saw that. And, you know, and that's his dad in there next to her. So, you know, that was kind of my, you know, family's important to me. And, you know, that's tough. You know, she was a tough gal, and we really miss her. And, you know, I appreciate you bringing that up. That's very thoughtful of you that you recognize that. So,
yeah. Well, you know what? We're going to dedicate this show to her as well. Why not? Let's have fun.
Hell yeah.
Her name in the write-up and everything else, you know, and, you know, I think this whole thing can inspire, you know, more women in construction. And I think, you know, Kate can do that.
Oh, you know, and, you know, you mentioned Amy. I love Amy Marks, man. That gal, she's the best ambassador for what's going on. We do need more women. It is so hard to, you know, it's fascinating. I love having women on the job site. They bring down the testosterone so much when they're in meetings. I mean, we're all, because, you know, guys, we're smart, but we're kind of dumb too. And it helps to just cut the corners off.
Right.
And I'm not a believer that you have to be a certain person or a certain type or anything. Anyone can do this job. You know, they have to have the answers. We still have a lot of knuckleheads we're weeding out of the industry.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, the women, and not just the women, but the young, diverse group needs mentors. They need someone looking out for them. They need a chance. Most of the time, they just get the opportunity, and you tell them what you want and how you want it done, and just check on them. A lot of times they're fine, but so many leaders are afraid to even approach those young people that aren't of the same whatever that they are, you know. And I was never raised like that. I was always raised in a real diverse community. My dad likes to say we're 35% diversified in our family. So and that's just how we were raised. So, you know, I've been fortunate. Now everyone I work for at the Bolt, almost half the people I work with at the Bolt company, they're all women. And it's, you know, that wasn't the case, you know, 10 years ago anywhere. So it's pretty neat. So, yeah, I'm a real advocate for that. And, you know, people in my position need to be very cognizant about that effort, because we're the ones that make those opportunities possible for other people. And then they'll do the same when they're in our position one day. So,
well, and that's it. That's it. And I'm glad to hear that you're such a big advocate. You play at such a large level. I mean, you've done over 40 million square feet of hospitals, you know, in your time. But I'm curious, you know, what drove you to change your approach to the projects after 40 million square feet of builds?
You know, I talk about it in my book. I was on a big Navy hospital in Portsmouth, Virginia, from 1994 to 1999, 2 million square foot hospital, designed in the mid 80s. And, you know, this thing was massive. I mean, we were literally painting walls on one end and pouring decks on the other. And I would spend hours every day after 3:00 going room to room, looking at the same thing, seeing if this sub signed this off in this room, see if this sub signed this off in this room. When can we close this? And it was painful. Oh my God, it was painful. And I didn't know at the time how much I disliked it. I just knew I hated it. And as I stayed on hospitals, they all kind of started to be, in that case, the same way, same amount of patient rooms. And I got into the HCA hospital world, and we were having to do vertical additions on top of an existing hospital. And if you've ever had a difficult project, try one of those. And trying to do as many things as we could without having to get up to the 6th floor. And we just kind of made it up. Me and some guys from Polk Mechanical and Enterprise Solutions and Baker Drywall just started making some stuff up in 2004, 2005, and they worked out great. And I was like, it just kept kind of going. Big break for me was in 2010. We did Miami Valley Hospital in Dayton, Ohio, and man, Andrew Quirk, VP at Skanska at the time, said, Skanska wants to do some prefab. And I said, I have some great ideas. I know exactly what I want to do. I really kind of need to see it. And he said, well, you need to go see what Skanska UK is doing. And I was like, okay, how do I get there? And he goes, got to get on a plane. I was like, okay, smart ass. And, but I went to London once and saw it, and went with my MEP Super Scott Hansman, came back, and I was blown away. I mean, that's exactly what we needed to do. We bid the job out. We ended up going back later on that year with the client and 2 or 3 of the key subcontractors. And, I learned at that point that it could be done. I also learned that I couldn't take everyone that I needed to convince to see this to London. So that wasn't going to be feasible. So I was kind of labeled as the face of prefabrication at Skanska. It's an ugly face, but it was kind of a funny name. But I mean, and then from my time at Skanska, I pretty much bounced around, and Skanska would win a project and they'd say, okay, somebody's got to come do this prefab we sold. And I'd pretty much parachute in and open the drawings up and circle what I thought we could prefabricate. And I'd go find a warehouse somewhere in town, and I'd get crews set up, and we'd start figuring out what we were going to fabricate. And then we'd start backing it into the schedule and knowing how to, I mean, it's really become quite simple for me.
It's interesting you said that, right? Because you took a very different approach than a lot of people prefabricating today, where, you already had the plan. It sounds like you already had the plans, and you were having to convert the plans that, Skanska or whoever developed, and say, all right, well, I can change this and I can prefabricate a lot of the parts and pieces of this plan. And that's when you went in, got a warehouse and built it that way, and I want to dive into that a little bit more in just a second. But you also mentioned a trip to London, and I know London, your trip to England, in general, was a big eye opener for you, in the sense of how more advanced they were from what you were seeing here in the United States. Is that still the case, or do you still see us behind the rest of the world?
I think it depends on where you are. I've talked to some folks in France. I've talked to some folks in England, and Europe. I think England is always going to be ahead, but in France, they're still way behind. They are still where a lot of the traditional GCs are in the US, but they're also faced with the same issues we are. They have an aging workforce, a declining workforce, not a young generation coming up wanting to do the work, yet our schedules and quality are being squeezed even tighter every time. So it really depends on where you are. I talked with some folks from Singapore at Advancing Prefabrication. They're trying to figure out how to change things in Singapore. And what we're doing, everybody's seen that video where in China, they build an apartment building in 2 days or something like that.
Yeah.
One of the things don't show is the 2 years they assembled everything in a warehouse down the street. It's pretty cool how it goes up, but it's funny. We still have so much issues in the US, just changing our mentality in the US. And, the forward thinking companies like Bolt, where I'm at now, I'm director of industrialized construction of Bolt now, the DPRs of the world, the Mortensons of the world, those companies are in great position. We'll talk about the future here in a minute, but the companies positioning themselves now are going to be in a great spot in 10 years.
I want to go to what you just said earlier, though, about the warehouses, right? And you built a model of how you could take plans that already existed, find warehouse, set it up, do your prefabrication of the parts and pieces that you could prefabricate. Would you change how you were doing that now with more thought process in front? And also, do you have to have pockets like $200 million at your fingertips to start prefabricating? It sounds like you found a way to do it on the cheap compared to setting up a brand new factory to get it going.
Well, there's a couple. There's been a couple fundamental shifts. There has been a focus starting in my first job in 2017 with HCA at Medical City Plano. We were integrated as the GC, we're integrated in with the design. So we actually, HCA brought the GC and the key mechanical, electrical, and drywall trades on during design. So there were no documents. We pretty much designed the job with prefab. HCA gave us a goal of 60% being fabricated offsite with a 10% schedule savings and 10% cost savings. So we went into the design with that. That really helped. I think you need to answer your question. I think you need to have at least 100 bathroom pods, 75 to 100 bathroom pods, and head walls, and now sink walls and corridor racks, where you can really justify opening up a pop-up warehouse, I'll call it. Bolt's doing a really big hospital in San Francisco, and it's 400 or 500 bathrooms, and even though it's going to be a snowflake, which is kind of what I call a lot of those projects, that's a good job to set up. Now we're actually getting in with the design. We're going through mock-ups right now with the bathroom pods, and Southland's doing the racks and stuff like that. So we don't, the having the design is key, but everyone thinks having the design is mandatory, and it's really not. So the biggest thing that happens is when you get on a job like this, it really throws the design team for a loop, because, we go and open up a warehouse when foundations are going on, and, we're sending in ceramic tile samples and bathroom and mirror samples, and the architect's going, well, we're still signing off rebar shops. What are we getting these for? So that re-education of how that goes, it's not any more work. It's just being done at a different time and up front. So, so stop me, Dave. I can talk about this for like 2 or 3 days.
I'm thinking, right? Because you sit there and you say, well, you don't really need the designs, but you need somebody like yourself that knows the process. So if you don't have designs, you really need an educated, superintendent on site that can get the workflow the way it needs to get the workflow going, right? For the productivity and the accuracy of it. So how did you manage that on such a large scale?
That education and that drive that I have, and I will tell you, my biggest struggle in the companies that I've worked for have been the other superintendents within the company. You can't push this. You can't be at a big company. One of the reasons I'm at Bolt is Bolt has got a corporate drive, initiative, mandate, whatever word you want to use, right, that going fully volumetric is going to be part of their business plan moving forward. And if the company doesn't have that push at the top, it's really hard to make it work. I'm always allowed to do it on my projects because I love doing it. Right. But, and then you kind of get into that thing where, if you're running a $200, $300, $400, $500 million hospital and you're the general superintendent on site, there's not too many superintendents that can run a hospital project that big in the entire industry. If I'm guessing maybe 200, 300, 400, those supers don't want to do it. No one's going to make them do it. And that's kind of where we are in the industry. I'm driven to change it. Yeah. You don't hear that from a lot of old guys like me, but I'm driven to change it. And I know I can change it. People always say, oh, that works on your job, Marty. And I'm like, it can work on your job. I don't have an O-ring off the space station that you guys don't, know? So yeah, I firmly believe that the attitude, like I said, I don't do any of the work. I just motivate the people to do it. I've had some funny stories. We first started our racks in Ohio, and me being the big bad superintendent on site, I went and told Mike Kelly, the TP mechanical superintendent, I said, put this in first and put this in first. And it was all screwed up. And he, because I told him, put the ductwork in, because the ductwork always goes in first, everybody around it. Had to take it all out. And he came up to me, he goes, Marty, he goes, look, let us figure this out. You go away, come back in a day or so, and we'll figure it out. And I went back, and they had pretty much populated the racks all by themselves, the mechanical, electrical, and drywall guy. And I learned right then to let those crews do what they're good at. And that's a hard thing for a big bad superintendent to say, that you're not the smartest guy in the room, that other people know how to do it, and let the pros do what they're good at. So that's a humbling experience.
It is humbling. And here's the thing, right? So how do you create that environment of change, in an established, stagnant industry? So, one of the things we talked about before the show is, man, it's so hard to get change to happen. But it sounds like you've been able to accomplish that on your projects. And I think people would really love to know, how did you get that buy-in? How did you get that cultural change? How did you get somebody to say, Marty, get the hell out of here. I know what you want. We'll figure it out. Leave us alone and come back. And here, like you said, your team bought into what you wanted to do, and then they figured out how to do it.
Well, some of it is learning. I had a great mentor, but his subcontractor meetings would last 2.5 hours. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not doing that. And I read Colin Powell's book, My American Life. And he has a passage in his book about when he was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, his meetings would last an hour. He would talk for the first 5 minutes, tell them what we were going to talk about. Then he'd let the discussion go, and he'd wrap it up in the last 5 minutes. And I thought to myself, well, damn it, if he's the chief of staff of the United States and he can get his meetings done in an hour, why can't we do that on a construction site? So I learned that right there. Then the other thing was, I've been open. I mean, I am open. I always try to add a little humor in it. I try to get people kind of off their game. I ask them, is this good? What do you think? It's ultimately my decision, but, I have to weigh some of that. You have to weigh, kind of on the fly. But when you get surrounded by so many good people, it's all for the good. Everybody wants this can be a very infectious, in a good way, cause. You get in there and you start with, you want to do 5 or 6 things, and all of a sudden one thing feeds off another, and all of a sudden, instead of making 4 or 5 prefab components, you're making 15 or 20. You're like, we didn't even think about that. Yeah, well, we didn't until we started getting into it. So, it's just creating that environment. I want work to be fun. I'm also a big one for food. I mean, but cooking out, and I've many times I've gone out in the heat of the day and myself and handed out ice cream sandwiches when it's 100 degrees outside. And you talk about a Hispanic rod buster that looks at you at 2:00 in the afternoon. You have an ice cream sandwich, and he's like, that really brings down the ego from the general superintendent. You have to be that kind of guy and talk to those people. And I don't know, that's how it's worked for me. And you just have to be charismatic. And so I a lot of
you mentioned though, right? But you also surrounding yourself with good people. And in your book, because you did send us this book a couple weeks ago, and I've had a chance to read through it. It's full of different characters. And then when I say that, from CEOs to just the general workers on the job site, maybe the person sweeping the floor, right? And you've hired a lot of people through, community outreach. So when I think about a book for, building, why did you mention so many people in the book? I know there's a purpose behind this.
Well, I wanted to show that I didn't do this on my own. I mean, I happened to be the one, I didn't do this on my own. I had a lot of people support me. My dad was a CEO for a medium-sized contractor in Ohio. And, he took me around when I was a kid. I used to fly with him. He got his pilot's license. I would fly to these little wastewater treatment plants they would do. And he'd say, sit in that corner and be quiet and only talk when someone talks to you. I was never good at that, but I also learned that I could talk to anyone because of the people he exposed me to, other company CEOs. And I also learned that, I still to this day don't know how I'm not at the bus stop at 4:45 in the morning waiting on a bus to go to work. And I'm driving to work in my truck. And I never lose sight of that. I was in the Army and I was on welfare, and I'm very happy with where I am now. But there's a lot of people that just want a chance. And I think a lot of people get overlooked. I was a prison guard in the Army. I'm not against hiring people that have a criminal record. There's certain crimes that I'm not going to entertain at all. But most people, from being a prison guard, there's a lot of people that just made a dumb decision, and they're and those people are extremely hungry. Give them a chance. We love to hear. It's funny because I hear superintendents bitch about the workforce and we don't have this and we don't have that, and I'm like, hey, try this. Well, that's not going to work. Well, what about these people? Well, that's not going to work. I'm like, okay, so you don't like this, you don't like that, but I'm giving you options. You don't want to try them. And I just, when we were in New York City building B2, between Skanska and Forest City, they did a great community outreach thing. We had people working for us that 6 weeks early had never even held a tape measure.
Yeah.
But when you have electric that is considered room in a box, where it comes in and your electric outlet's right here and your whip's already tied up to the ceiling and over to the light switch, you don't really need to be an experienced electrician. You know how to read the drawing. We can teach you how to read the drawing, and you need to know how to read a tape measure, and you know how to run a screw gun. Those are things we can teach.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's where our industry needs to change. We can start doing more manufactured components. And you ever go talk to Chris Giatina down at Blocks to see what he's doing? He's taken that to he's perfected that where he is. So
there is a workforce out there, and during our travels, and we did our road trip for 2 years, across the country going to manufacturing. It was quite surprising how many companies have tapped into, the incarcerated system, right? The prison system, because like you said, there's a lot of people that they need that second chance. They messed up. They could have messed up when they were 18, right? And here they're getting out at 30 and they have no desire to go back there because they stole something or whatever the case is.
Right. You're right.
Yeah. And there's a big opportunity. And the fact that you worked in the prison system, Leavenworth and others, some of the toughest prison systems, and hearing you say that really brings some validation to that, because there are good people that made bad choices. Hell, I've made bad choices that could have probably put me there once or twice when I was young,
Right. The other group that's out there is the single parent.
Yeah.
Typically associate that with being a female. And that's kind of what I've been exposed to the most. But, those folks need, we were doing stretch and flex in New Orleans on a Skanska job. Skanska was really strong about stretch and flex and still is to this day. And I had a young lady working for me in the BIM department, and we were doing stretch and flex at 7 a.m. And I had a guy next to us go, well, where's Stephanie at? And I go, well, she had to drop her son off, and the earliest she can do it is 7:20 in the morning. Why do you care?
Mm-hmm.
We need to adjust to that. When my wife and I have 4 kids, we've been married 38 years. I didn't go to one prenatal appointment with any of my kids. I was working hourly. If I left, I didn't get paid. Now all the young fathers go to every prenatal appointment. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. I would have loved to do it. That wasn't a thing when I was younger, but it doesn't piss me off that these guys get to go. But man, you get a lot of guys that aren't real happy, a lot of guys running jobs that kind of chaps their butt just a little bit, that these guys are going. And I'm like, why? Those are the things that need to change.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you know what it is? Like, this is why people will leave the industry now, right? Because every other industry gives, man or woman the opportunity to, that's a significant life event, right? And you want to be there to support it. So I could understand that too. But on the other side, when you do have a superintendent that says, well, I need to have 2 floors on this building by the end of tomorrow, or I'm not going to get my bonus. There's opposing things that drive these conversations, but that's a cultural change at a company level that has to really start happening, or having a superintendent says, you know what, I'll take the heat for you. You go do that.
what I've seen, a lot of superintendents have a, I think the superintendents are going to get mad at me, but we need to be better at reading our schedules. I mean, there's a lot of them that,
Yeah.
you don't call a floor guy on Tuesday afternoon and say, you better get here tomorrow and lay 60,000 square feet of floors. You should have called that subcontract, that trade partner, 8 months, 2 or 3 months ago. So I think if we prepare better on our sites and know what's coming, I think we're better off. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So why is the construction industry, so slow to change the pattern of contracting, innovation, building? Like, why are we so slow, man?
man, I don't know. So the story I tell, 25 years ago, a 500,000 square foot hospital was a 36 to 40 month schedule. Today, that same 500,000 square foot hospital is 26 to 30 months. And other than a little bit of BIM and everybody carrying $1,000 phone in our pocket, we really don't build any differently. And when you hear a summary like that, you kind of go, well, that's dumb. But I don't know. It just seems like general contractors are always trying to get the next job. And I also think we've lost a lot of customer loyalty. Just because you did a good job on the last project doesn't mean you're going to get the next one. You get to bid on it. Even if you got the client in early and saved them a bunch of money, you're not necessarily going to get that job because they're going to go out and try to bid that out.
Right.
That HCA is not like that. HCA is great about repeat work. I mean, they're one of the true repeat clients if you're fortunate enough to be into their system. But there's so many guys, and I hate using the term guys, but that's largely what it is. And well, I've been doing it like this for 30 years, and it's just fine. And I have a chapter in my book called "We Don't Drink Beer at Lunchtime Anymore."
Yeah.
And I drank beer at lunchtime when I was 18, working on a job site. I mean, and things have to change. It kind of goes back to that discussion about fathers going to prenatal appointments.
Yeah.
I had a boss, Gary Breeding, loved him, but man, he was really old school, and he did not want to hear about me going to soccer games on Saturdays when we lived in Virginia, and I had 3 kids that were playing soccer. And I thought I was being upfront with him and telling him what I was doing so we could be. I just stopped telling him because he'd get pissed off. So, I've worked really hard to not work Saturdays, and in the union strongholds, you go by a union, you get in a union town, nobody works Saturdays, but you get in the Southwest, Saturday's a regular work day. And I think one of our problems in the industry, we've got to start scheduling our projects better. We've got to start understanding our workforce better. If we can't get our work done, and we pretty much work 10-hour days as it is now, 12-hour days. Why do we need to work on Saturdays? That's just ridiculous. The work-life balance, it's really difficult. Bolt's extremely good at it, but everyone else isn't. So I don't think so.
If you could actually just kind of look into the camera and just say, in a few words, how do companies create an environment of change and innovation? How do they begin? How do they start? Because so many people struggle with this, and it seems like in your mind you have this figured out.
I do, and it's always weird. People say to me, well, we need more Martys on our jobs. And I'm like, it's weird to hear that, but it's also somewhat of a compliment. And then, I mean, I think you have to be a people person. Yeah. And people ask me all the time, they go, hey, what's the best class I could take to learn about construction? And I go, Psychology 101. They go, really? And I go, yeah. I said, we can teach you drawings. We can teach you materials. We can teach you schedules. That's easy. Yeah. But you're going to be dealing with personalities, and you got to be able to shift quickly. And I don't think there's enough focus on the psychology and the managing of personalities. We do talk about it in training classes, but we don't focus on it. And we have to be understanding. I mean, we have to be understanding. I think being a superintendent is a really tough job. I mean, The hours are difficult. The pressures are difficult, especially when you're working on healthcare, because very rarely do we build a greenfield hospital. We're always tying into something. And, I don't think most clients understand the impact it has on me, especially when we hit a utility and knock power out to a hospital in Texas in the summertime. And, we're not doing it on purpose, but we're doing everything we can to fix it. And there are hundreds of reasons, but we have to be people. We have to understand people. We have to be sympathetic, put some humor in it, and feed people.
Yeah, right. Well, and I mean, that's really what it is. Give them ice cream sandwiches is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Well, I love cooking on the job site. In Ohio, at the Miami Valley Hospital project, we had 700 people on that job, and I couldn't feed. I didn't want to have one big cookout because I really don't ever get to talk to anyone. So we went to having every 2 or 3 months in the summertime, we would have a different sub in and cook just for them. Me and our Skanska Shook staff, we would cook just for that subcontract. Each had 180, 7,500 people. I could really kind of talk with those crews, as people saw me walking the job, I saw them up on a ladder doing whatever. Mm-hmm. You can really connect. It really helps for the senior folks to connect with the workers. Most workers will do it if you just show them a little bit of care and compassion, they'll go pick the corner of that building up if I ask them to. They're probably going to tear up some stuff doing it, but they're going to do it. They're going to do what they can for me.
You know what? It's so much fun to hear you talk about this, and I think you have an answer for a lot of things. So I'm trying to get some of these out of you on like when you hear we are doing fine the way we are currently operating, or it's like you said, we've been doing it this way for 30 years. Why should we change, or what do you say to that when they say it? And then we're going to go to some comments and questions.
Well, you're making a huge mistake if you're not thinking about changing in your organization right now.
Yeah.
The workforce is not leaving. It's gone. The crop of college graduates now are not like me. They didn't come up forming walls and footers and pouring concrete and hanging doors and setting cabinets, and they're never going to do that. So we have to figure out ways to manufacture as much as we can offsite. That we have a very small window to change, to do parallel activities. Yeah. And it's during the foundations. If you're a company and you're not thinking about the investment, it's tough for general contractors because, we're all kind of turned into finance managers and we want to invest, but we want to see that return on investment in a year or so.
Yeah.
Maybe 18 months. And when you start an operation like this, like Bolt's done, it doesn't happen that fast. You talk to SurePods, you talk to Neopods, you talk to Blocks, you talk to any of these folks that are doing this, it's taken them 5 or 6 years, Baker Triangle, it's taken them 5, 6, 7 years to get really good at what they're doing. Right. So they probably took a hit, but it's now a repeatable part of their business profile, of their company profile. So, I caution anybody that's not really looking hard at this I was with some Manhattan folks last week, and Manhattan's looking at getting into this. I'm like, Manhattan? That's great. So
yeah. Well, let's continue this conversation. We're gonna go to some comments and questions from the audience, and then after we're done with comments and questions, we're gonna talk about what's coming up in the future, and also how you can get a hold of this awesome book right here. Marty's going to tell you how to get a hold of it, and you're gonna make them happy. All right, here we go. RJ from YouTube says, "Hi, Dave. Great topics." Well, RJ, thank you for joining us today. We got Ro R. Cool topic. Thanks, Dave. Well, Ro, thank you for joining us as well today. Good to see you in the audience. From LinkedIn, we got Raphael. Great to see Marty. I had the pleasure of meeting him in Canada at IGLC last year. His book is awesome. Just in case you're wondering, it's this book he's talking about right there. So I love it. And don't worry, Marty, I won't expect you to pay me any money for book sales. It's a good book. So, all right, from YouTube, Dace Campbell. Hi, Marty. What are some of the biggest risks and pain points you see for a team getting ready to dip their toes in the prefab waters?
So the first question someone's going to ask is this going to save me any money and how much? And the next one is, how much time is this going to save me? And that's not really, and that's the natural process in business, but those are questions that should take a back seat. You get as far as the material goes, we're not using any less material. We're using the exact same material. In some cases, maybe a little bit more. So there's no real material savings. The cost savings, it's going to be a wash also, but you're going to have your quality and your safety avoidance are going to be like you've never seen before. And you're going to have cost certainty and schedule certainty that you've never seen before. If you're in, depending on what part of the country, part of the world you're in, if it's raining for 2 or 3 weeks, you can still be building bathroom pods and head walls and racks in a warehouse somewhere while you can't get on the job and do footers. So you don't think about those kind of things. So don't let the cost and the schedule be the driver, or the cost and the materials be the driver.
Perfect. Dace, thank you so much for that question. Appreciate you. The Dr. Brett Musson's in the house. LinkedIn. If DFM is more efficient, how can it not be necessary in a market that rejects 19 of 20 projects because they don't pencil? That's a great question.
It's because most people don't know what it is. They really don't understand it. I've had to explain to people that, manufactured construction is not a mobile home. And but that's the farthest thing from the truth. So, and I think a lot of companies, almost every company I've seen out there has a couple, 1 or 2 marquee prefab projects. They put it on their website and say, we do prefab. Here's our prefab project. The marketing people will spin it and make it look prettier than that probably was, but they can go to the next presentation and say, we do prefab. I think clients really need to be doing some research on the experience. It's kind of like a mechanic. You want to get word of mouth on a mechanic. Same thing with your DFM contractor. Hey, that was a good one. I just made that up.
Yeah, you did good. That's why you're so good on the fly on job sites. All right. Dace Campbell, do you prefer panelized versus volumetric, or another flavor of prefab modular altogether, and why?
Well, I prefer both. I want to panelize the skin, and then I want to do volumetric on the inside. Volumetric can go, there can be a couple different definitions of volumetric. I know at Bolt and blocks and Girdon and full stack modular, they're doing fully volumetric, a full unit, ship it in. But you can also do subcomponents, sink walls, bathroom pods, those kind of things. People ask me all the time, if you could only have 2 components on a project, what would they be? And the answer may surprise you, but it's going to be prefab electric rooms and exterior skin. Exterior skin panelized to the point where everything is on it. And then the electric rooms, Enterprise Solutions out of Nashville is doing some things with prefab electric rooms that every contractor in the country ought to be doing. So those are, that's my response to that. And I've stopped because I keep going. So.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that. Thank you for that question. We got a couple more to get through here. Hey, Russ Willis is in the house on LinkedIn. Great mindset and great team makes all things possible. Good to see you, Russ. Go ahead, you can take it. We'll join your call.
No, it was a headrunner.
Fun. All right,
I should have turned that off.
Yeah. Russ is in the steel business as well. Does a lot of cold form steel rolling, an expert in the industry. Russ, good to see you. Thank you for joining us today. Appreciate that. No stranger to this show is Greg Ugaldi. I flashed him up. I think he just disappeared on me. Bobby Neal Jackson, interested to know what Marty Corrado thinks of the last planner system.
Well, I didn't talk about it, but I love it. Hated it the first time I did it. Thought it was something being pushed down on the job site from corporate construction. My first foray into this was in Delaware in 2012, and Cynthia Sau was my first coach. And I am a huge fan of the last planner system. I haven't mentioned it at all today, but you really need to really need to pull plan these. Pull planning and percentage trackings are the ones that I like.
So the planner system that you use, what is it called?
LPS.
LPS. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and don't Rebecca Snelling and if Cynthia they're listening, they're going to kill me for not answering this spot on. But
they can just put it in they could just put it in the comments.
Yeah. So no, I'm a huge fan of pull planning, getting the subs in, pulling everything out, tracking it, the daily meetings. I mean, the daily meetings and the weekly report outs and the percentage complete are huge. I mean, they're as important as modeling.
Perfect. All right, we're going to go to 2 more comments, then we're going to wrap it up here. Brett Musson has some statistics that I think are important to talk about regarding a prison record. 1 in 3 black men in America have criminal record. There's nothing you can say to convince me that 1 in 3 black men are criminals. There is a lot of untapped labor out there, especially in marginalized and over-policed communities. You know what? There's going to be some truth behind that, I would imagine, too.
I agree, Brent, and I will tell you that I think a lot of white managers don't know how to talk to the young black kids in the world, and so they just don't say anything. So they kind of get overlooked, and I wasn't raised like that. I think we need to have outreach in those communities, and we're trying to get to that. And a lot of this DFM really helps that. We don't have to put someone on a job right away trying to learn how to do foundations and drill piers and all that kind of stuff. We can put them in the factory and they can learn how to insulate pipes, insulate ductwork. They can learn how to label valve tags. They can do some of this. So we've seen a lot of advantages with that. People can learn in a factory environment for a big job.
For sure. Dr. Musson, thank you so much. He's no stranger, Musson Factories. So he's in this industry for a while and wrote a really significant white paper. I think it's called a white paper, right, Dr. Musson, or you for your doctorate? He's going to kill me. I can't remember. All right. Bobby Neal Jackson is the last comment we're going to take, and then we're going to wrap up with where the future's headed and where you can buy this book right here. All right. Yes, quality and schedule are 2 of the biggest benefits. Would you agree?
Absolutely. It's funny. Quality is such a funny topic because you get very few examples of good quality, right? Everyone's got a couple bad quality stories. But when you talk about good quality, people really have to think about it. And this example I use all the time is you walk in the grocery store and bad quality is when those sliding doors don't open up at the grocery store and you slam right into it. That's a key example of bad quality, I guess. And then the safety avoidance. The safety industry has still not figured out a way. If I'm running a 500,000 square foot hospital and I think we're going to have 750 to 800 workers at peak of construction and we only have 350, I mean, my project won't even qualify for the 1 million man hours, zero accidents on 1 million man hours work because we didn't work 1 million man hours. Well, we ought to get noticed for not working 1 million man hours. Yet we can tell exactly what finger got cut and what part of the arm got cut and how it got cut. But, we really need to figure out how to extract the safety data out of this. And that's been a struggle and an issue for me for years. What's the safety savings, the less exposure? Think about all the corridor racks where no one's going up and down a ladder. What is that? So,
right. Well, that's exactly it. And I think there's so much improvement that can be everywhere. So, Marty, you've been in this industry, obviously, for 35 plus years, right? You've done over billions of dollars in hospital and healthcare projects. You've kind of invented your own way to prefabricate, and get projects moving in a different direction. You wrote a book on it. Where do you see this industry going in 20 years?
I think we have to figure out how to, I've said this for years, you have to be able to prefabricate where it makes sense. No matter how much prefabrication, robots will start coming into it. No matter how much modularization we do, we're always going to have somebody get down in a trench and connect those concrete pipes, and someone's going to have to pull those big, triple aught wires through a conduit, so there's always going to be some of that has to be done, but you need to do what you can where you can. And the example I use a lot of times is, it doesn't do any good to do any prefab in the ceiling of a conference room. You're really going to waste your time and spin your wheels when there's really not much there. But that corridor feeding all those rooms down there should be looked at. So minimizing the work that has to be done on site, and then doing more of the soft skill stuff. We're starting to get into anyway. So I can keep going, so I'll stop.
I know you can. Well, listen, what haven't we covered yet today, Marty? Is there anything that you would like to leave with the audience that maybe I did not ask you, something you'll be mad that I didn't ask you after we get off the show, or is there anything?
No, I think you're a really good host. You're really in touch with the industry. I think the message that you're trying to get out is huge. And we need platforms like yours to get this out. I just think you have to be a compassionate and caring leader. You have to plan your work, and you have to look out for your people. And that's so easy for me to do. I know it's not easy for everyone else, but even if you're a leader and you're not good at, and your number two person is, well, let them do it. So you don't have to be good at everything. So no, I really appreciate you having me on here. This has been a hell of a lot of fun for me.
I love it. Well, thank you for being on. And here, let's put this up here. Who's that? Looks like Marty right there, right? Is that your website, Marty?
Yeah, that's my website right there. www.martycorrado.com.
Yeah.
If you buy a book on the website, I send you a signed copy.
Nice.
You can buy it on Amazon too, but man, those bastards only pay me like $8 for a book. So
yeah, look,
and I don't know who buys it.
I got one signed.
Yep.
So best place to go is we can go to your website, martycorrado.com, and they can get your book right there, and you'll give them a signed copy. That's an awesome picture, by the way. I love it.
I get a lot of comments on that.
Yeah, perfect. All right, then. So for everybody else out there, what an awesome show we had today. Marty, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, be sure to come back on Wednesday, 1 p.m. That's right. We are going to be talking to Industrialized. That's right, Industrialized. We're going all the way overseas, and we're going to talk about some new software, and not just software. We're going to talk about how AI fits into offsite construction and the changes it's making and what they are doing. So this is going to be a great conversation this Wednesday, 1 p.m. right here on Dave Cooper Live. You will hear it first. We are only trying to bring you the most innovative people that are trying to really make change in this industry. Whether you agree or disagree, it takes people trying to make a difference, and that's what everybody out here is doing. So, Marty, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate you. Doing a good job, man.
Hey, appreciate you. Don't go anywhere, Marty. I'll come back to you after the outro and we can chat after the show. But for the rest of you, we'll see you at 1 o'clock. And by the way, if you're not following Marty, you're wrong. If you're not buying his book, you're doubly wrong, because I guarantee you're going to learn something. Take it from us. We have a copy of it. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching. Bye, everybody. What an amazing show. Thank you to all of our sponsors for helping us to continue to bring all of these innovative conversations to all of you out there. Please visit them, see what they have to offer you. And as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel and ring that bell. It would mean the world to us. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching.